Tracy, the Sacred CEO here. I wanted to come live over here on Life After Divorce. And I just want to talk about a few things. As some of you know, I actually filed for divorce last year in 2023. But I actually left my marriage in 2022. I left my marriage, I left my home, and I left my business, meaning I shut down my business all within about 3 or 4 months. So I have a lot of people asking me, well, why did you get divorced? Especially at your age, right? So when I decided to leave my marriage, I was 56. 56. Most people at 56 aren't leaving marriages. I know a lot of women at 56 who are in very unhappy, unstable marriages because of a fear of leaving, because of investments, because of, time invested, because of financial investments, because of children. There's so many factors. Really, a lot of it has to do with many women being married so long that they don't know anything else and they're scared to find out what else is out there. I've seen so many videos and so many memes about, women going outside and it's nothing out there for them. And for the most part, it isn't. It isn't. But in the way that I think and the way that I view things and calculate things, even though I'm not going outside to choose another husband or another mate, my level of happiness and peace was much greater. The desire for my level of happiness and peace was so much greater than me staying in a unhappy, broken marriage. So it wasn't about me going outside. It was about me choosing myself. So I didn't leave my marriage to go choose anybody else. I wasn't looking at anybody else. I wasn't thinking about being with anybody else. I'm still not thinking about being with anybody else. I left solely for me. My whole view on marriage is if you're unhappy, and you have an advantage or an option to work things out, and you have a partner or a spouse that wants to participate and cooperate in working out your union, I say go for it. But if you have a partner who is not doing anything but selling wolf tickets, talking, and showing up doing nothing, talking about what they want to do, how they want the marriage to, be rekindled and reconciled and all of this stuff, but they're doing no work to make that happen. They're not even working with you to make that happen. Then by all means, why stay? Because that means you're going to be dragged. You're going to be dragged, right? So I'm saying this as far as advocating life, love, and happiness after divorce. Everyone deserves happiness, life, and love after a breakup and after divorce. No matter your relationship status, you deserve happiness, love, and life after a breakup and after divorce. You deserve that if that's something that you so desire. Right? You don't deserve to continue to be in a toxic situation that is making you emotionally, mentally, and physically sick. And that's what was happening to me. Now, let me be very clear. I didn't want a divorce. I didn't want to leave my marriage. I say that, and I say it boldly. I did not want to leave my marriage. However, I wasn't willing to sacrifice myself, my whole being, my mental, my emotional, my physical, and my spiritual, to stay in a toxic marriage that my then husband had no ambition to fix and help. And that's all it is to it. I did everything in my power. I exhausted every effort. So at that point, what do? So I have so many people coming online, sending me DMs, men, mostly men, mainly men, saying, what am I going to do now at my age? Live. Be happy. Me being happy is not a degree or subject to me having to be married. That's not where my happiness lies as a woman. As a woman, my happiness lies in how happy I create and make myself. For what I make of myself, my own happiness, that's where my happiness lies. My happiness never lied wholly in a man, thoroughly in a man, thoroughly in my marriage. I came into my marriage happy. I came into my marriage happy about him at one point. I did. But then it got to a level of where I began to feel dishonored. I began to feel discouraged. I began to feel disrespected. I began to feel devalued as a wife and as a woman based on some of the behaviors that I was experiencing in my marriage. I'm going to tell you, I was already going through women's issues, but then I started having heart palpitations. I started having migraines. My body became very inflamed. How do I know? Because I could see it around my neck, and my ankles stayed swole all the time. Yes, I was experiencing depression. I was experiencing high anxiety. I've never been one to experience high anxiety. I was experiencing high anxiety. Oh, it was a lot. It was a lot. I remember going to the doctor and trying to find out what was going on with me. And the whole time, I'm going to just keep it 100. My marriage was making me sick. My marriage was making me sick. And many of you won't agree with that, but I don't give a damn about what you agree with. This is about me saving my life. My marriage was making me sick. It was. So to death do us part? No, I wasn't going to die in that mess. No. I'm not going to die in that mess. I was married. We were together for 10 years. I was married 6. Okay. Right after we actually got married at the Justice of the Peace. And, we got married and things were good for about the first 3 years of getting married. But then I wanted to have a reception. Every young girl wants to have this reception and this wedding and all of these, these things and this celebration of love, right? So I wanted to have a wedding reception. So it was 3 years after we actually got married. We ended up having the wedding. Was it 4? About 4 years. 4 years after the going to the Justice of the Peace, we decided to have a wedding reception. I spent all this goddamn money. Hold up. See, that's another thing too. They got us all messed up in spending all this money on this celebration and this ceremony that don't last. So see, I'm going to tell you just off the rip, have something nice and intimate where you don't go spending all that goddamn money. But they blow this shit up for us when we're young. When we're young girls, we're thinking about the wedding. We're 10 years old thinking about the wedding already, right? So I wanted this beautiful wedding ceremony, and I was able to have that. I experienced that, and I'm happy about that. I'm happy I experienced that because I did want to experience that as part of the course of my life. I did experience that, and I give it about 8 months after that ceremony in front of family and friends is when he changed. Everything that he said he was going to do, everything that he was doing, everything that the participation and the investments that he made in our union and our legacy to thrive, he stopped doing it. He just stopped doing it. Literally stopped doing it. And then soon after that, to make, matters a little bit more desperate, his mother passed. After, he started exhibiting this behavior. His mother passed, which made things worse because even though he was exhibiting these behaviors before his mother passed, now his mother passed. So I'm kind of walking on eggshells because I understand he's more sensitive now and he's grieving and he just experienced a loss of his mother. Okay. But in the loss of his mother, what happened was more anger issues came out because there was unresolved issues there. Right. So I experienced abuse on top of abuse. I did see the red flags before the ceremony, and I actually did a video on that on YouTube. I seen a lot of red flags before the ceremony, and what I did is I overlooked them because I really wanted to give us a chance, as well as I didn't, and I'm gonna be honest, I denied a lot of the red flags and I excused them. I actually said things like, and I know many of us have done this. I said things like, well, he had issues during this time in his life and this happened to him. And because he wasn't heard in these areas, when he was coming up, maybe that's why he's doing this or doing that. Like, I started excusing the red flags and then he started excusing them too. He was excusing them too because he was telling me, of course, when you're having an intimate relationship, people open up and start telling you things that's going on in their lives, right? So you're learning about things in their lives and you automatically connect with them in those areas and you have compassion for that. And you genuinely want to help. You genuinely want to serve. You genuinely want to be there for the person that you love. You want to help them, get over some of the childhood trauma. You genuinely want to be there for them, especially if you heard the story about nobody's been there for me. Everybody that I love has left me, or everybody has, done me wrong. It's always a violin story. It's always a victim story. And those of us who are empathic and are compassionate people, boy, that sucks us in. We hook, line, and sinker on that shit. You know what I'm saying? It don't, especially if we're attracted to the person. But what I also found out is I was trauma bonding. I did not connect with that issue until I actually left the marriage. That's when I connected with that. I had to connect with the trauma bonds. The trauma bonds were, I came up as a child, was manipulative and gaslit. Denied responsibility in certain things and would always turn it on you like you were the one negative or you were the one bringing up the past or you're the one. So so issues were always unresolved. And so because having a parent that I experienced that with, I knew how to navigate that. So what I did is I seeked out relationships, even friendships that kind of mirror that same pattern. Why? I know how to survive that. I know how to navigate that. That's familiar. It took me to be in my 50s to realize this, y'all. Don't come for me. Don't judge me. We gonna get it when we damn get it. Period. You know what I'm saying? We gonna go. Some of us is 50, 60, 70, still going through some of the same bullshit. We ain't got it yet. I'm so glad to get it in my 50s and not take it into my 60s. Man. But it took me to be in therapy and in my 50s to connect that I had trauma bonded with my ex-husband. So I was recycling the same familiarity of relationship that I grew up with. So a lot of the things a lot of the behaviors that he exhibited, I knew how to move in that. And they were familiar. So that's why it never dawned on me till I became overwhelmed. It never dawned on me that the behavior he was exhibiting was an issue of abuse. It never dawned on me. It never dawned on me until I became so mentally and emotionally overwhelmed with the fuckery, with the abuse, with the negativity, with the toxicity. I became so overwhelmed with it that I couldn't take it anymore. It was like I was a computer system and I had crashed. I crashed out. Literally, I crashed out. I couldn't go no more. I couldn't go no more. And I was so willing to work it out. I was working on my issues while in the relationship. I was going through therapy. I was, at the doctor's. I was doing what I needed to do because I really wanted to make it work. Why did I want to make it work? Because that's the so-called American dream, right? For a woman. She comes here playing with baby dolls, honey, and then cleaning house, sweeping and cooking and all kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what we come here doing. We come here being trained and conditioned on how to be a wife and how to raise children. That's what we come here doing. Most men, when they come, they come here, they learn how to crash cars and, go to war and that type of thing. Go out and, how do you get the car? You got to work for it. They're taught certain things too, but they're not taught to come in and how to be a husband. So see, that's where they've created a deficit with men, because even though they brought young girls in to believe and start playing with dolls and doing all these things for them to be mothers and wives, when it comes to young men, they didn't teach them anything about being a husband. They didn't give y'all any game on how to be a husband. Most of us had to learn by trial and error in whatever examples we had before us. And some of those examples came from television. So don't be so hard on yourself. Find out what it is. What is the pattern in your life that you keep repeating in each relationship? If there's a pattern, if you've detected a pattern in your life that you continue to repeat in each relationship, it is not so much the other person as much as it is you. And see, that's what I had to identify with. It's not as much. I can talk about what my husband did and what he didn't do, what my ex-husband did and didn't do. I can talk about that all day long. I can talk about his behavior. I can talk about his abuse. I can talk about, the trauma, the issues. I can talk about all that. But in talking and discussing him all day, how is that going to better me? How is that going to create a healthier version of me? So I had to look at, what are the patterns that I recognize in every relationship that I've had? Love relationship and some friendships. What is the pattern? What's the common thing that keeps happening? Because most of the time we're dating the same person in a different body. It'd be a few things that are different that attract us and have us thinking, oh, wow, this is not the same. Oh, my God. He does this different or she does this different, right? It's a few things. And so you think the person is different. No, it's the same person in a different body. Why? You've attracted that same familiarity, that same thing that you're familiar with in relationships. You've attracted that again. Why? Because you're going to automatically do that because that's what you know and that's what you're familiar with, and you know how to navigate that. Even if it's toxic, you know how to navigate it. I knew how to navigate the abuse I was experiencing. And let me be real clear about this thing called abuse. Very clear about this thing called abuse. Many people think because your partner, your spouse, your lover, your mate, husband or wife is not hitting you, that it's not abuse. Okay? Because see, that's a lot of times what he would tell me. You know, he would be doing this mind fuck thing, this gaslighting thing, and he would be, you know, hollering and screaming and disrespecting me. And I'm looking like, hey, I'm your wife. Why are you talking to me like this? And he says, oh, well, I'm not hitting you. You gonna be okay. When the first time you hear somebody say they're not hitting, but I'm not hitting you though, that's abuse. And that they ain't far off from hitting your ass. But I'm not hitting you though. Matter of fact, I'm going to go do a life and divorce series on that. On marriage and abuse. And what are levels of abuse? Because there are different levels of abuse going on. And just because they're not hitting you does not mean it's abuse. And we need to stop looking at it like that. We need to stop. And I found myself saying that. I found myself saying, well, I was experiencing, you know, verbal abuse, and there was some emotional abuse, and there was some pushing, and there was some holding me down, and there was but he wasn't hitting me though. And when I heard myself say that, I said, you sound like an abused woman, making an excuse. So I'm one step better, and because he didn't hit me though. There was no hitting though. So does that make it better? Does that make it better? Fuck no. It doesn't make it better. Are there levels to abuse? Yes. There's minimal abuse, and there's mediocre abuse, and then there's extreme abuse. But it's abuse. And what I recognized in my marriage is that the abuse that was happening was escalating. It was escalating. So it started off verbal. It started off emotional. It started off, you know, those so-called what we call minor abuses, right? So, and as I'm expressing, honey, this is abuse. I know abuse. I can feel it. I know abuse when I'm around it. Oh, well, I ain't hitting you though. Be glad I'm not hitting you though. What? Be glad you're not hitting me? What? No. So be very aware of that. When somebody says, be glad that they're not hitting you though. And I'm looking, I said, that doesn't make this any better. And that doesn't absolve you from still being abusive. That doesn't absolve you, but that was his way of redirecting responsibility and accountability for his behavior, right? So once again, check your patterns. What are the patterns that come up for you in relationships? If there is a consistency of a pattern and things that continue to show up for you in relationships, it is not so much about the other person as much as it's about you. And I had to deal with that. I had to deal with my shit. There was a pattern here that I had learned very, very young how to navigate. And I was familiar with it. Did it mean it's healthy? Nope. Doesn't mean it's healthy. Not at all. Does it mean it's right? Nope. Not at all. So I just wanted to come live and do my share and talk about why at my age, you know, in my 50s, at 56, I chose to leave my marriage. Okay. My so-called what looked like happily married. And we were at first, like we had some great times. We maintained a lot of beautiful memories. We did. I can't take nothing away from that. But when it got to the point that I felt my body being affected. I became sick. When I couldn't shake the depression, when I couldn't shake the anxiety, when I couldn't shake the headaches, couldn't shake the joint pain, when I couldn't shake these things. And when I started looking older, I was noticing, there was a look about me that wasn't fresh and didn't have that zeal. And it had nothing to do with age. Because, as many people have said, you can age beautifully, audaciously, gracefully. It had nothing to do with age. It had everything to do with stress. Stress. Being overworked. Being manipulated. Being taken for granted. And being misused. And the more I voiced my feelings, the more my feelings were denied. The more my ex-husband devalued me. I never knew what a narcissist was until 2 years ago. And that word is being thrown around a lot. And I have to say, with us being raised in the US of A, and this corporation, this capitalist patriarchy society, I think we all have some narcissism. So it's we have been socialized in a very narcissistic structure. It's interesting. So, no, I didn't leave for anybody else. I left for myself. Am I looking to date? No. Am I looking to love? All the time. I'm always loving. I have so many love sources that are platonic. I have my family, I have my children, I have my grandchildren. I have supportive friends, next level friends that are doing amazing things. And we might not talk every day, but I know they love me, right? And I know they support my healing and my happiness. So yes, I'm okay. I'm okay leaving my marriage, my home, and letting go of my business at 56. And many people are like, well, why you let the business go? Well, anything that had his name on it, I didn't want nothing to do with it anymore. And plus, I was so overwhelmed and overworked that I had no more energy. I had to heal. I had no more energy to be, the employer of a staff, of a spa business. I had no more energy. I had to give all that energy, all of what was left. I had to give it all to myself. All to myself. I could not divide myself anymore amongst anything else. And that's one of the reasons I let it go. Well, two of the reasons. So peace and blessings. Remember, you deserve life and love after divorce. Don't let nobody tell you no different. Join our safe and supportive community for women who are over 40, recovering from divorce and in the process of a reinvention and finding happiness. The Rebirth Collective.